Various means. And as a person who is in this box, who leaves this box every day to get into a box on wheels, to go into this box, to go into a box that goes upstairs, that I have to walk into another box and sit in a box and look at a box all day.
A lot of boxes.
There's a lot of boxes. I'm boxed.
What a fight. Yeah.
And we don't talk about diversity, inclusion, and equity and what that looks like from the person's lens that you're fighting for. Because get this, when you go to that website, the person who appears, person of color and woman, out of 4 people.
There goes that curational colonialism again.
You said it, not me.
Yeah.
Now, I don't believe that these people are I don't believe that the people that I choose to associate with, because I have curated my own friendships and my own social networks, is people that I like, oh, that's what that's like? Okay, got you. Thank you. I love you, and I love you from afar. If I'm in jeopardy and my physical being is at stake, we're talking about self-preservation. I have to do that every day of my life. And maybe y'all do too in a different aspect. However, if we're a team and we flock together, I'm going to trust that y'all got my back. I don't see that happen. Why do I have to go to work and then find out after I go to work why the doors are locked? That normally are not locked. We're on high security and y'all wait till I get there to tell me that we're on high security. Oh, by the way. So me coming from here, 1.8 miles, anything could have happened between here and 1.8 miles. And this person is publicly on Facebook saying that he's feeling some kind of way. Enough that y'all had to call. I can't say this too many times. Y'all call for high security. To protect who? Because apparently it wasn't me. And apparently it wasn't these other people of color and women that he's mad at. Maybe it just went over your heads while you were planning shit. Planning for everything else because you want to have a good show. And you want to have a good standing. And you want to make sure that the stakeholders are happy. And you want to have a grand event.
Most of them would be shareholders because you're trying to attract more funding by showcasing at that event, though. I mean, realistically, who tends to go to those events? In my opinion, if it's a foundation.
It's a legacy builder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a. I mean, it's a different pattern, but.
I expect them to be disingenuous.
I know that's the
thing. It's not even because I know I've had different conversations, and I hear and I experience and I've seen the emotion. I think that is just a patterning, because if I have to go the deeper layer, and not that I'm pulling for straws, right? Because it's like I really want to know that it was an oversight. However, this is a pattern of thinking.
Yeah.
Versus an oversight.
Yeah.
And somebody needs to speak up, and it goes back to what we were saying earlier, like I'm hyper vigilant right now because now I have this narrative in my head, and now I've connected these dots, and now I've explained the story to several different people, a couple of different ways. One of them being, am I right or am I wrong?
Yeah.
And am I connecting the wrong dots together? And how do I tease this apart? And what do I do when I go back?
So that part, I mean, like, yeah, that piece is like, at that point, because what you're doing is you actually see literally, even though it's not intentional per se,
right?
It is a product of institutional racism in the institution by design, and by that I mean that like there's a certain ratio. There's a reason why they had to form a DEI committee or whatever it is in the first place, because it's not integral to the leadership and the way that the organization operates. And one of the things that I was going to include in the case with when I'm still, I guess I should do that tonight or something, but in the note of dissent to the organization is called Starting Block, where I'm a fellow to it, is that like it's the leadership, it's a pattern, and there are limitations, and if we say you need to change leadership, it doesn't mean that we have to take away the people who are already there, but you need to start empowering people who actually have the perspective instead of making them educate you and then go through the entire process of articulating the offenses and making you understand what it means, and then selling you or giving away the solutions that should be compensated for in some way anyhow. And then the example I gave was like actually Aretha Franklin is one of the best examples for how to deinstitutionalize racism within the business, because every time she showed up in the contract, no segregated audiences, pay me in cash up front right now, because the institution has a history of screwing people over by not paying them, right? Those are some very simple business guidelines, and that's really powerful. That like, look, it's just one person performing, but she did her business, and also people kind of joke about that payment part, or at least they think that's kind of cute or something. But no, that's some really if you remember the context that it's around, and even still today, like that's actually, that's still probably one of the best examples for visceral like record of like how do you deinstitutionalize racism. And then that's the problem, like these organizations, they'll say like, well, we can't solve all of these problems today, that's not we would love to solve racism or whatever, right? But it's like, no, we're not asking you to solve racism in the entire world. It's within your organization, and that's very much within your power, and in fact, again, like stop perpetuating the burden of the oppressed in terms of making sure that like, well, why don't you tell us what it is, or can you spend some time and advise our focus group, or let's start a DEI committee, and maybe we'll consider your suggestions in the 5-minute slot for our annual agenda, Oh. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, all right.
We get worked up about it because it's something to get worked up about.
Yes, and that's what I was going to say, because like I was in a holding pattern for the past year or 2 years, because I was like, I don't know how to articulate or say that. I mean, I did, but it would just result in a 8-page report, which is what it resulted in. But I didn't feel like putting that up as a Facebook post or anything. Right. Yeah, there will be people who read it, but I'm still not going to get anything out of it, and nor will the people that it's on behalf of. And everybody who dissented, most of them, like I said, one of them is the mayor of Geronimo in Oklahoma. Another one was running for state representative in Indiana, and they were already actively speaking out against this organization, saying, look, this is discriminating, or like, this is the one running in Indiana, he's Caucasian in a rural community, so that's a marginalized community as well. And he's the one who's taking jabs about like, look, you're never going to change the world if you're only catering to Deloitte consultants claiming that it's change making, or McKinsey and Company, and that kind of a thing. And there's another organization a couple of years ago, it's still around, Echoing Green, where someone else had accused it of, not just accused, just pointed out the case that like, look, your practices are racist as well, or at least they perpetuate institutional racism. And there's a lawsuit around it, and Echoing Green was trying to smooth it over, and that's like the same caliber of intensity of, because again, like you've got actual public officials, elected officials, or potentially elected, who are speaking out against this fellowship, or saying like, look, you're not doing something right. But they didn't really do anything in their annual report, transparency report, to say, oh, race is actually a high priority for us right now. You know, we had this conflict and we're trying to figure it out still. They did go through and try to have a bunch of listening sessions, but they did it on their own terms. And they even phrased it as, oh, let's have a marketplace of ideas about this. Right? Like, is that doesn't connect with, like, you know, you've already, you know, some of us don't even have money to, you know, and anyway, so that's, yeah, that's, so what I was saying is that, like, it's not